afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Stock Market Today. It's Ali, Coram, and Shreve here with a breakdown of the action in today's session, Thursday, September 14th, where we saw some pretty solid gains across the board for the major indexes today, Ken.
Yes, indeed. It was a good session, and it came amid another big surge in the U.S. dollar, which was a bit counterintuitive, but the market is going to do what the market is going to do, and we've got three stocks to watch: Booking Holdings, BKNG, formerly known as Priceline, also Jacobs Solutions in the heavy construction group, and finally one of the few stocks left standing in the restaurant group, FirstWatch.
All right, we'll get to those three stocks, but first let's take a look at the major indexes. Today, the Nasdaq and the S&P 500 up about 0.8% each. The Dow up almost 1%. Had been looking not too good there, but the Russell 2000 too, which had been in worse shape, up 1.4% today. And the Nasdaq and the S&P 500 both back below the 50-day line, Ken. So that's good to see.
Back above, yeah. So the Nasdaq is kind of has its sights set on 14,000 here. Still keeping an eye on that September 1st high from about 8 or 9 days ago. That's a level of resistance that we're watching here. But yeah, it was a pretty interesting move. We had a producer price index report that was sort of similar to consumer prices yesterday. It was mixed. There was some good news on the core numbers for wholesale prices. The headline numbers might have been a little worse than expected, and then better than expected retail sales. So interesting. We had strength in the 10-year Treasury yield again today. The U.S. dollar strengthened, but as news editor Ed Carson reminded me, the market is probably getting a little more optimistic that the Fed may truly be done with rate hikes between now and the end of the year. The odds for a quarter point hike in November have fallen quite a bit in recent days. So that is probably one reason that's fueling positive sentiment here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree. It'd be great to get the Nasdaq above 14,000 and that reversal high at the beginning of the month, but perhaps some shorter term tactical traders or those who want to add just a little bit of incremental exposure here maybe opted to do so with the Nasdaq and the S&P 500. I'll pull that one up now, getting back above the 50-day line. And the S&P here, notable move above 4,500, that round number.
Yeah, looks like about 5 points above 4,500. It's still below that recent high as well. So we hear a lot about how September is seasonally a tough month for the market, and while that is true, and the data proves that out, it's possible we could be at the start of a year-end rally here. So we're keeping our options open. We still have an uptrend under some pressure, but we have to. We have to pay attention to bullish price action when we see it. Going back to the Nasdaq, we have two higher volume gains in a row. It looks like so starting to see some subtle signs of accumulation. I'm not sure. Maybe volume might be a little bit lower today, but it was tracking pretty close to Wednesday's level. So the fact that the Nasdaq and the S&P 500 and Dow are all above their 50-day moving average is a very positive sign. Yeah, and so we'll have to see what tomorrow brings, and market feels like there's some buyers around that could lift this a little more, but we're not gonna stay married to that thesis. Indexes still need to get above some levels, but pretty bullish action today.
And now let's take a look at the Russell 2000 RUS. So finding support right around that 200-day line, bouncing today, but this one's got a lot of work to do, Ken.
Yeah, no doubt. That was a pretty bad break, last week of the 50-day moving average. So the Russell is probably definitely the weakest index at this point. But like I said, it is encouraging to see the Dow, S&P 500, and Nasdaq, really nice percentage gains today. Outperformance from small caps today, but this index still is a little bit, technically challenged, shall we say.
Yes, it is. And now let's take a look at some notable stocks in today's session. Here's Booking Holdings, BKNG, up 2.6%. This one did manage to get some above average volume and the highest volume in a couple of weeks here, Ken. It did have that heavy volume decline in about a month ago, but it's making up ground. And would you consider this a short and shallow base that it's forming here?
Well, I mean, one more day and it'll be a flat base. So if you go to the weekly chart, you're going to see some nice tight weekly closes, and I think by the end of tomorrow, you'll have a little 5-week shallow consolidation here. I think this base only pulled back about 8% off the high. So after a really positive response to earnings, the pullback has been. I mean, the weekly chart just shows perfectly. You had that good heavy volume earnings move, and then volume really quieted down as the stock consolidated. It held support at the 10-week moving average. So we'll keep an eye on this one for an upside breakout. It's going to need it's going to need the market to continue to act well here. So if indexes can keep going on their uptrends, I think that'll bode well for booking here. But it's in a really nice setup and showing strength and support, and it is the leader, in the online travel group. Airbnb is setting up pretty well, but you have to give the upper hand to booking at this point. Just an institutional quality name, and again moved above Tuesday's high today. Closed a little bit off highs, but in a nice setup here.
Yeah, perhaps some aggressive investors nibbled with that move above that recent high that you mentioned. Let's go to ticker J here, building, heavy construction. We've seen some industrial names pulling back a little bit more than maybe we would have liked, but this one, even though it fell below the 21-day, found support right around where you would like to see it, above that round number at 130, above the 50-day line, and getting back above the 21-day line today with a gain of almost 2.2%. And I bet you're pretty interested in this weekly chart, Ken.
Yeah, it looks good. Again, another response to earnings recently, where you had that nice blue up bar and positive, big up session weekly gain, and then generally a low volume pullback here to the 10-week moving average. And I think the stock is actionable right here as it finds support. It's kind of trying to break out of this really long consolidation, so that 137.61 is a good pivot to watch, and you can see how far back this sideways consolidation goes. So David Ryan on IBD Live often talks about these big long bases, and listen, if this market is healthy and we end up rallying into the end of the year, little Santa Claus rally early, this one could participate as well. Just good earnings breakout and getting support right where it should.
Okay, next on our list, let's take a look at FirstWatch Restaurant Group. That is ticker FWRG. Here's a look at the weekly chart. Speaking of long bases, this one consolidated from September 2022 through July of this year, broke out, and then started forming a new, much tighter flat base. The last base depth was 33%. The current base depth is at 13%. And here's a closer look at the daily chart, which shows an early entry that was triggered today with some volume.
Yeah, the restaurant group has been under a lot of pressure. You can see it's fallen down to 107, so it's kind of in the bottom half of our industry group rankings here, and there's not a lot of stocks left standing in the group, and that might be over concerns about a possible slowdown in consumer spending, whether it's before the end of this year or maybe the first part of 2024. But FirstWatch is still in the early stages of growth here. I think they operate some 450 restaurants, and I know they plan to open a lot more than that. They're open for breakfast and lunch, so they don't have dinner. I don't think we have any locations here in California. If we do, they're few and far between. But I was in Phoenix recently, and they have a big presence there. So again, just a good high quality restaurant name. It tends to trade in wide intraday swing, so it's not it can be volatile. You can see that on the daily chart, but very big volume in the stock today, and there was no news, so there were definitely some big investors in there accumulating shares. You can see volume was more than double average. Gave an early buy signal today, but finding support at the 50-day moving average, moving above some of these recent highs, and it's got a relative strength line that is getting back closer to highs. So I think it's one of the more compelling names in the restaurant group right now, with a lot of other names really hit hard by selling and below their 50-day moving averages.
Yeah, and it seems like, Ken, for a number of potential stock setups today, does this one stand out to you in the fact that the volume was really there? It really picked up in this stock today.
Yeah, especially when there's no news. I mean, there was no
Yeah.
analyst upgrade that I saw. There just weren't any headlines around the stock. So when you see volume expand like this, more often than not, it's usually a mutual fund in there acquiring a position or other institutional investor. But again, this is a nice bounce off the 50-day. We haven't seen that many heavy volume bounces off the 50-day moving average recently. We're still in kind of that slow summer post summer doldrums area of the market, but this one's looking pretty good here. Again, it is volatile, but we like to find some of these stocks in the early stages of their move, and you can go back to the weekly chart here and see its IPO was not that long ago, and it's still a relatively new company. And if the expansion continues to go like it's been going, and the company continues to deliver the top line growth that it has, as well as earnings in recent quarters, again, this looks like a good name to watch in the group.
Yeah, would love to see it bust above that 20 level. We'll see if it can do that soon.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Thanks, Ken. And thanks everyone for tuning in. We will be back with more tomorrow morning on IBD Live, and we hope you join us, investors.com/IBD Live for all the details on that. We're going to be joined by John Kosar of Asbury Research. It'll be great welcoming him back to the show and to see where he's seeing money flowing in various sectors. Always insightful. So looking forward to that. We will see you there. And we'll also see you right back here tomorrow at the close.